call the meeting to order at 1:52. So High Prairie School Division Board would like to acknowledge we're meeting today in High Prairie, located with the ancestral and traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of this area. This land has been and will continue to be home to the Cree, Dene, and other First Nations and the Métis within the boundaries of Treaty 8. We also wish to acknowledge the traditional knowledge holders and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. Any additions to the agenda? Tammy.
Approve the consent. Approval of consent. Approve consent.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not the way I wanted to do it, but we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to do the approval of the consent items. Welcome back to in-person live and the day after you spring ahead. All right. Approval of consent items. I would like to make the motion. Lori?
I make that motion.
Now, this is the part, Sue, you can help me with, please. Would you like us to read the whole motion out loud that's in that green box?
I think
It's
probably should.
okay
It would be nice
for our public, and then when we make that. Lori, so then can you read that? Or would you like me to read it?
I would love you to
Okay.
read it. Thank you.
So that the Board of Trustees receive the items listed below and to approve all recommendations contained as follows. The adoption minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees held February 15th, 2022. The receipt of the superintendent's report as information, the receipt of the trustees report as information, and receipt of the correspondence as information. Thank you, Lori, for making that motion. Call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, now we're number 6. Changes to the agenda. Okay, Karen, you'd like to add something to the agenda?
I have a question about how to add what I need to add to the agenda, because I have a report from a standing committee. Within the report, there are recommendations, and our standing committee reports are at the end of our meeting. So should I put it in action items? Should I wait for the end of the meeting in standing committee? And then we can just add any action items from there? What would be the most appropriate way?
Sue?
To the report during the standing committee.
And then we can bring up motions from there? Okay,
And sometimes we do motions in the Q&As as well.
okay, so, okay,
Kind of the same.
Yeah. So I'll wait till the end of the agenda, or where it's.
And your, again, standing committees 1.1.1 will work for you then. So you don't need to add anything else.
It's 11.1. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
tell me.
I would like to add 9.2.7 tobacco and vaping
Letter? Okay.
And Laura, are you gonna add Edwin Parr? Do you want me to do that as well?
Yes, Edwin Parr should be
9.2.6.
92.26, yes, thank you.
So 9.2.6 is Edwin Parr, 9.2.7 is tobacco vaping letter. And number 12 will change to closed.
Yes, we're going to go back into closed at the end.
Yep. So we'll add a closed back onto this agenda, and under closed will be personnel.
And so then the numbering will change, go to 13 and 14.
Yeah, right. Does that give you good for you, Sue?
Complicates things a little, but it's okay. I'll manage. We'll figure it out.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Laura takes good notes.
And Laura takes good notes. I got good notes. I think we're ready. Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Tammy, all those in favor? That is carried. Number 8, points to celebrate. Kyle.
To start with, the Alberta Education Assurance Surveys are well underway, with most of our schools having their staff and student response rates at over 75%, with several of our schools already having 100% of staff and students completing the annual survey. The schools are still actively working with our parents and guardians to complete their surveys prior to the extended April 1st deadline. We were able to reach out to Alberta Education to have PDF copies of those surveys. So for folks who don't have access to technology or reasonable internet, they're able to still complete the survey and then submit that into the government. With that, we also have our HPSD version of the assurance survey, which is taking the questions that the government asks and paring them down. So there's a lot less duplication and we can get some more concise responses. The difference being, unlike the AEA survey, which only goes to parents and guardians of students in grades 4, 7, and 10, and to those in 4 to 12 with schools with under 120 students, this goes to every parent and guardian. So far, we've had about 340 responses. And with the AEA survey, the most we've ever had in the last 5 years was about 100 less than that. So it's a really good representation. We've been putting out reminders and having people fill it out. So we have good data for our schools to use when they're building their education plans, working on their AERRs, and just in general planning.
That's good. Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Very impressive. Yeah. Our Cree language classes are wrapping up at the end of this month. They are every Tuesday evening, and folks can tie in via Zoom. We've had anywhere from 100 to 250 people on average attending, and they've been also shared on the YouTube channel for the Indigenous Education team and on our website so that people can go back, see the content. We've also got a document section that people are going and accessing the different resources that are being shared amongst the group. We've also nominated 4 students for the Honoring Spirit Indigenous Student Awards. And last year we had 1 winner from our region. It was from High Prairie Elementary. And so we're looking forward to hopefully realizing another award for our region. Next to that, we have our Orange Shirt Day. Shirts are going to be prepared with an order form that will be sent out to our school communities so that folks can buy an HPSD orange shirt. The design was done by one of our students, and through a selection process, we're just finalizing the order form, and then that will be sent out so that we get the shirts in time for activities and events during the week of September 30th. The Government of Alberta, through Alberta Education, has opened nominations for the Great Kids Award, and they're being accepted until March 25th. And these are for students ages 5 to 18 who've made a difference in their school community. So we're sharing that out, and hopefully we can get a few nominations for that as well. Kindergarten registration is opening up across the division. So keep your eyes peeled for registration open houses to be popping up. We've got posters going out, books and backpacks for our kindergarten students are shipping out to schools. We actually just received a large shipment of books coming in so that we can get those sent out and welcome our students into the 2022-23 school year. The last point is our theater ads are returning to pre-pandemic format of having students in schools reading the theater ads that will be showcased in High Prairie and Slave Lake. And so we've had students from High Prairie Elementary this month, and watch for the next one coming out in April. Upcoming, we have spring break next week and the Council of School Councils meeting in April. And those are my points to celebrate for this month.
Does anybody have any questions for Kyle?
Kyle, can we see the design for those shirts?
Yes, when we put out the order form, we'll have the design on there as well with what it looks like, just as the logo itself and also as the shirt, but it's something that I could email out to the trustees as well so that you'd be able to see the work.
I'd like to see it, but yeah, that's great. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, we had a lot of responses from our schools and students, so it was nice to have them come in and had a first, second, and third, and worked with an Indigenous owned company that's going to be producing all
really
as well.
Oh, that's really cool.
Nice.
Okay.
Lynn?
Just a question regarding kindergarten and the backpacks and books that are available. Do you have those available in French as well? Like when you send the books out and stuff?
So when we do the book orders, we order a lot of pre-K books. We order books that focus on literacy and numeracy, and then we also order packs that are focusing on Indigenous themes and also in French as well. So we make sure that those options are available to all of our pre-K or our kindergarten
Perfect. Very good.
Good to hear, thanks.
Anyone else? Karen?
Yeah, just going back to the assurance surveys, could you repeat, we have some of our schools that have 100% of staff and students that have answered,
Yeah.
and the rest of the information? I wasn't able to.
Oh, okay, so the majority of our schools are over 75% with their completion rate, with several of them at 100%. So they've completed every survey they have available to them. And the deadline's been extended until April 1st.
Okay.
And they're working with our parents and guardians to get those numbers up. We're still lower than we were last year for those assurance surveys with the parents.
Okay.
One of the things to keep in mind though is we are able to get those PDF copies so that the administration teams in the schools can go to these parents knowing who they are and asking them, have you completed the online survey? If not, we've got a PDF here, and then they would mail it in. The only thing is we don't know how many PDF copies we have. It's not reflected in these numbers, right? It's all the electronic version.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Kyle, I have one question for your order forms going on with the orange shirt day. Could you send that email to our local chambers so we can get it out to our businesses community? Can they order from you too? Or is it only for schools?
I think for the first part, we wanted to see how many orders we had through the schools. We had estimated a number of shirts that we would sell based on previous years. And so we were guaranteed that number to arrive before September 30th. Well, actually, hopefully before the end of June, so that we have them in place and can have them distributed out. But if we have a larger demand, we may be able to accommodate that as well with the vendor. They just needed to make sure they could source everything and have it available to us because we want it to arrive before the third week of September.
Okay, keep me in the loop if you get some extras or whatever. I'd like to put that for the chamber for slide.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anyone else? Fabulous. Thank you very much, Kyle. We'll move on to 9.2.1.1, Public School Boards Association Awards, nomination criteria and forms. I see Lynn Skrupnik's name has been put forward for an 8-year-long service award. So that's nice to see. Congratulations, Lynn.
Thanks for sticking it out.
I love that you love being called out and everything, doing public and all that. So when I read that, I thought we should add that. Anything, Laura, do you want to speak to this one? Or
No, just we don't have any nominations for any of the other awards except for the Lynn with the long service awards.
okay,
And it actually has to be done at this board meeting in order to accommodate the April 11th deadline. So I just think Friends of Education or Public School Board. So any of those ones. So sorry, yeah, don't have any.
and did anyone have any of these that they had thought about or brought forward or had been doing any thinking since our last meeting and we tabled? I didn't myself. I hadn't been in school again, so I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't know.
I gotta say, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I gotta say, throughout the last couple of years, I feel very disconnected from our schools in terms of it every day and what's happening and, all the little details. So to say that there was a champion in the community that helped, it was harder, I think, to identify this time. I have anyway, but with that, but so unfortunate. Hopefully, moving forward, things can get better.
And anyone else? Okay. Well, then, guess what, Lynn? You're gonna get one.
Default, hey.
It's by default. Thanks for hanging around. You're gonna get one of those. All right, so there's no motions or anything to be made under that, so we'll move to 9.1.2. Proposed position statement from Peace River School Division.
is going to present that.
You or I can,
Yeah.
either of us know about it.
Which one of you would like to go? Tammy? Thank you.
The Peace River School Division is looking for support from the zone level. They are also looking for a seconder for this motion for the fall general meeting for a proposed position statement. And as is explained in it, there's been a lot of conversation recently about the challenges that school boards have been faced because of decisions made by government in relation to relieving red tape and expense for corporate Alberta, we'll call it. And these decisions have inadvertently affected school divisions in a way that has cost them significantly. And what the intent of the proposed position is to ask government to, as they make decisions related to corporal Alberta, recognize the uniqueness of school boards in that area as being 100% taxpayer funded, with no ability to generate revenue to offset these types of expenditures. And they put some examples in there that I think are very valuable. One of them being the MELT program for drivers that are literally costing school boards tens of thousands of dollars a year in order to train people for the MELT program, who we're now seeing coming in, getting that training, and then literally leaving to go to work full time and having obtained that training at sometimes free or at half the price, depending on the school board policy. Another example of that is the significant changes to insurance that has affected school boards in an adverse way. Luckily, we're part of AIMCO, which has mitigated some of that risk for us. But contract school bus drivers in this province have seen school bus insurance go from about $1,700 per bus to over $6,000 per bus. And so there's school boards in this province right now that have drivers and literally can't afford to insure the buses. So there's contract drivers that would normally have 2 or 3 spare buses sitting ready to go in case one broke down, and they've stopped insuring those. So when a bus breaks down, the route isn't being covered. And these are all unintended consequences that affect school boards in a way that we really have no genuine way to offset through earning income and things like that. So the intent of this is to have ASBA advocate to ensure that government, when they make these decisions through regulations, protect school boards from unintended consequences. Because at the end of the day, the government has the ability to regulate protection of school boards from insurance increases. They have the ability to regulate the MELT program to set bus drivers outside of that. They have the ability to regulate all of those things. And as 100% taxpayer funded organizations that are governed by trustees, but are guided through the Education Act, we should be protected from things that literally affect the ability to keep our dollars in our schools with teachers and EAs and wellness programs and all of the things that we need to do for kids. And instead, we're drawing some of that money and having to use it for things that really we shouldn't be affected by. So the Peace River School Division is going to bring this forward to the fall general meeting, but they are asking for a seconder and support from all of the boards in the zone. They have asked if we'd be interested in seconding this, and that's only because I helped them to work on the project. So, but anybody have any questions about it? Corey?
I was just going to make a comment on it. Like the actual motion, I don't think has been established yet, but just to share the intent and see when we go back to the zone meetings
In May.
do we support this? Do we support them in this? And so that's why we're bringing it at this stage.
Do you need a motion for it? To,
I'd say if you want to be the secondary, you should.
If we want to be the secondary, yeah.
I can make that motion.
Corey?
Few questions.
Absolutely.
All right, so from what I'm hearing you say, so I'm clear understanding, is that it seems like the entirety of our bus system seems hard and very difficult to manage. And so from what Peace River is asking and what I'm understanding that the government can do, will is another question, but they have the ability to regulate insurance for us, regulate fuel costs for us, regulate everything for us to make the prices reasonable so that we can then put more money into our education versus trying to spend $6,000 on insurance in a bus.
So in a simple statement, that is correct. The
Okay.
government has the ability to regulate, like they deregulated insurance a
Right.
year ago. They deregulated some of the things in their red tape reduction act that have inadvertently caused price increases for in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
They deregulated electricity costs. They deregulated a whole bunch of things that have changed the reality of the bills coming in, not only for us, but people as well.
Yeah.
But for us, we are 100% publicly funded.
Right.
So we're spending taxpayer dollars. So why should school boards face almost a penalization of publicly
Which is
funded
what it
money
seems like.
with all of these increases?
Is there a precedence though? Like, has there ever been in the past where the government has then said, yes, we will help here to make things easier to put more money into education? Has there ever been?
It used to be in the form of like, we had a grant that used to cover, that used to give us more money because we bus in rural areas where fuel prices are higher. What was
Sparsity.
the sparsity and density grants and things like that? And that was money that they gave to us, but they removed a lot of those grants from us. But the government, at the end of the day, just has the power to regulate and deregulate. So, and they've been very good at deregulating in the last year and a half. To satisfy corporate Alberta's desire for more freedom, less red tape, all of those kinds of things. So you would think
Yeah.
that on the same token, protecting something that is a 100% taxpayer dollar
Right, for
funded
sure. So if we can,
entity.
so Peace River is wanting us to get on board to help lobby
Yes.
to regulate these costs so that they're not so astronomical, and we can be able then to put our taxpayer dollars back into our education the way that it should be.
Yeah, that's the intent of the proposal. The motion will be cleaned up a little bit,
Yeah.
but they're hoping for that support from the zone and a second
Okay.
for the board.
Okay, yeah,
So-
thank you.
Go ahead, Jody.
I don't take a position whether the board should support the motion or not. I just want us to be careful about, I would want High Prairie School Division to be very active in the wording of the motion. The fact is that this government has a financial picture in mind, how they're going to unfold things moving forward. And we want to be seen as a partner, not a standing there with our hat in our hand or accusing the government of defunding us, or like, we want to be supportive in how we approach this. And really more thought maybe should be given to what do we need? Do we need a fuel escalation clause put back in? Like, what are the things that will satisfy this without the government? Because, like, just put yourself, if you could, for a moment in the government's seat. What prevents education from asking for this exemption, and then healthcare asking for this exemption, which is also 100% taxpayer funded, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Assume they don't have they have a two-tier system. So I just suggest more thought go into what the best approach is, satisfying the school division needs without asking the government to exempt us from all their legislation agenda.
That's a very good point, Jody.
I appreciate that.
Karen?
And so to that point, I think we understand that there is a need for something to be done. And we are maybe agreeing to support this in principle at this point. The motion will be presented to us at zone. We will have the option to wordsmith it there. And then when it hits the floor at ASBA FGM, you can bet your bottom dollar there'll be wordsmithing happening there too. So there will be opportunity, but you're right. And I think that gives us a lot of food for thought in our discussions, in our future discussions with this. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any more comments? Karen?
Question with the motions, should we then, in light of this last little bit, should we then make a motion to second in principle only until the motion's written? Can you do that?
I think you can make a motion second in principle as long, until and then the board can decide when they see the final wording of the motion.
Yeah.
Because it
Like
may
I
come
wanted
out. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It just, if it comes out to something that you guys can't stomach or is
Yeah.
more hard line, then
Yeah.
you want some way out.
Being able to, to support our stance. And it may be that others offer to second as well, but yeah. Okay.
So Lynn put a motion on the table. Lynn, did you have a wording or anything for your motion?
Yeah, just a motion to, second, to be the seconder for this position statement, but to be able to, step back from it if it's not something that we find that we can support in the way that it's written.
How about something like support in principle?
Yeah, I've got, move the High Prairie School Division offer to be seconder of this position statement in principle.
That's fantastic, eh?
Yeah.
That does. Yes.
That's enough. We don't.
Yeah, we're gonna have 2 meetings yet. What,
2 zone meetings before.
1 zone meeting before, because our next zone meeting is May 11th, and
And
this has to
September.
be in by March 31st.
Okay.
It has to be proposed to ASBA by March 31st. But we would be able to confirm our seconding in our May meeting if everything goes in a way that we can support the motion.
Okay.
Or the position. So
So you're feeling good with that wording, Lynn, as it's your motion?
Yeah.
All right. Any more discussion? No more discussion, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? It's carried. We're moving on to action items. 9.2.1, school year calendar. You want the motion first, right? Okay. Who would like to make the motion? Adrian? Would you like me to read it or you were going to read it? Okay.
Practicing their reading skills today.
To approve the 2022-2023 school year calendar as presented.
All right. Laura, and then we'll open for discussion.
So it's just referring to the draft that you have there in front of you. We have 197.5 operational days, 178 instructional days for that would be for elementary, and 181 for senior high. Startup days, there would be 3. There would be 4 days at the end of the year for elementary. PD days would be 8.5 days. None of those are dedicated to divisional PD days. There will be 4 other days inclusive of parent-teacher interview day. Those would be parent-teacher interview days, and teachers' convention days. So the non-instructional total would be 19.5 days off of the school calendar. Minutes of instruction for elementary, junior high would be 320 minutes per day, and senior high would be 334 per day. There were a survey that went out. There was 1,065 respondents to the survey, and that we used as countries.
Oh, okay, well, I looked up and Tom and Adrian, so you guys can fight for it. Adrian, you go first.
Mine should be brief.
Okay.
I'm wondering what minutes of instruction, what that means. Like that's how many minutes there are in a school day?
Yes, that you actually have to have an instruction. So not counting your breaks, your lunch, your movement, your before school, after school.
Okay.
So each day has to have that many minutes in it in order to accommodate 950 hours that we are required by legislation to offer to grades 1 to 9, and the 1,000 hours of instruction that we have to offer to high school.
Okay. I just wasn't quite clear what that meant.
Tammy, go ahead.
My question was just around Christmas break, and I love Christmas break, but I was just wondering if there was there any big splits, or was it a real evident starting that early and going and being back right after New Year's?
There were a couple of things. I think it was fairly close as to whether it was starting on the 19th, like starting the holidays on the 19th, or starting it into the middle of the week. And there was some discussion about starting it into the middle of the week so that we weren't coming back right after the new year. However, there were a few other things that we wanted to take into consideration. And with the diploma exam starting on the 12th of January, it was important that those teachers get the high school students back as soon as possible. That was one thing. The other thing is a lot of the teachers felt like by starting it on the 19th, get one whole weekend more in there. And if you're flying anywhere, that's really important for them to get cheaper flights home if they're living across Canada.
Oh, sure, because they can fly out as early as the night of the
Friday.
16th
Yeah,
instead
exactly.
of. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I just was wondering about that. I like that Christmas break. I just was wondering if there was a lot of, like, if it was a real close, you know.
Kyle.
It was, I think, 15 votes either way. Where there was a big swing though was our students. We had a huge number of students respond this year, and those would be our, I believe it was grades 4 to 12. And so their vote was overwhelmingly for what we have right
They
now.
wanted out
Okay,
earlier.
they wanted out a little bit.
Yeah.
Laura?
And I think it's good that you've done the January 2nd, because so many, again, I've been quiet too long, I know, but I'm really controlling myself. I can't appreciate it. Is the January 2nd because the banks and all that have that day off, and a lot of medical stuff because the 1st is a Sunday. And so we were one of the divisions last year that had it also off, and other people didn't. They were back really early. So it's nice to see that there's a reason for it, because there are lots of other people coming back that aren't working. So I think that's good. And I like the Orange Shirt Day. I think that's a good recognition of reconciliation and that type of thing. So that's nice to see in this year when we've had more time to plan. Thank you.
Lynn?
Quick other question on the survey. In comparison to the last years, is 1,065, is that normal? Is that going up?
It's roughly the same. They're fairly static with those numbers. So the one thing would be to note that it was more students this year.
In 2021, it was 1,089, and in 21-22, it was 1,089, and this year 1,065.
Okay. So it's okay. To be consistent.
Corey?
Couple questions about like the calendar in general. So the red day in lieu, what does the day in lieu mean? Like in lieu of what?
Parent teacher. So what we do is we ask our teachers to stay from like 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock,
Yep.
2 nights, and then they earn a day off in lieu of that. So
Okay,
by staying 2 nights, they get a day off.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then there's no school for kids that day.
That's right.
obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other question is as for the start date for the new year, how do we determine that it's that last week of of August versus like the first week of September? Like, how do you decide that?
Okay, that's a really good question. And again, we do in our survey ask about, start dates. In order to get enough days in the semester,
Mhm.
We need to determine when the start, of course, and the end is.
Right.
So we could have started after the long weekend in September, but we would not have been able to have had any PD days throughout that whole semester then. Or if we had had semesters, we would have had to have cut our Christmas break down to, instead of 2 weeks, like a week and a half or like only 7 to 8 days. So.
But couldn't you have like extended it on the back end?
No, you can't, because the diploma.
I'm just asking.
No, that's okay, that's a good question. If you notice, if you look at the calendar,
Yeah,
pay attention.
sorry.
You want to go to school in July? Holy
Okay.
smokes.
It's in January. yeah.
If you look at January and you see the blue there, those are those are the diploma exams
Yeah.
that are written. And so the teachers have to have their students ready to write their exams. There are no other times to write those exams at the end. They
Okay.
have to write it that day at that hour.
Okay.
So they're very, very regulated. And so if you can't push it back,
Hmm.
because once they've written that diploma exam, they're done.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're really bound by those exams.
sure.
Getting rid of them is not a bad thing. Then we could change up.
Future discussions might lead to.
No worries. Okay, no,
All year round.
that helps make sense. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you. Just for clarification, going back to days in lieu, the ones in May,
Yes.
are they specific to schools? Because okay, so it doesn't, usually it says in a bracket, is that the date on the list or whatever?
Yeah.
Which schools? So it's not 2 days in lieu in a row.
Yeah, no, and if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see May 12th, that's day in lieu or PD day. And the same thing on the 19th, day in lieu or PD day.
So both of those days will be days off for students?
It will be, for sure.
Regardless, okay.
And it's just that GP Vanier likes theirs on tied into the long weekend because they have their graduation ceremonies that weekend. So they want their PD day on that day and the day in lieu of the week before. And then it's different in the rest of the division.
Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else have any more questions on the calendar? Well, the motion's on the floor. Adrian's made the motion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? It's carried. That makes Kyle's life exciting. All of a sudden, I can see him just twinkling over there.
Email out.
I know, he's excited.
He's probably drafting.
9.2.2, CUPE agreement ratification.
So to ratify the Union of Provincial Employees, QP 1038 High Prairie School Division Memorandum of Agreement dated September 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2024, as discussed, upon which, once notified of this ratification, the agreement will be drafted by the Alberta branch of QP National and forwarded to High Prairie School Division for signing.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Karen. Any discussion? Tammy?
I'm assuming QP ratified with no trouble.
They did ratify.
It was resounding.
Oh.
Wasn't even close.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Anyone else have any discussion or questions on that? Karen,
One quick question.
Yeah.
It's probably towards Jody more than, so this ratification is what came out of the meeting we had before Christmas, right? Because you had the meeting that,
Negotiations.
the negotiations that got denied. And then,
Yes.
okay,
and then we had another one.
And then
Another meeting.
Yeah.
so we're all thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the negotiation
Right,
team.
right,
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
perfect.
And this for the bus,
Yeah.
bus drivers union
Excellent.
contract, yeah.
Okay. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 9.2.3 Bus Driver Liaison Committee recommendations.
To approve the recommendations of the Bus Driver Liaison Committee as follows. Operational budget, cell phone allowance of $35 per month effective immediately. Bus plug-in flat rate of $50 per month for the months of November through to March, effective immediately and retroactive to November 1st, 2021. Increase the current wheelchair stipend from $10 to $20 per driver effective immediately. And capital budget, capital expenditure of maximum of $10,000 to renovate CJ Schroeder School to include a driver washroom and other. Notification of drivers of vacant positions in the division, and drivers may claim the meal allowance set by the board and not need to submit receipts.
Who would like to make that motion? Tammy, thank you. Any questions, discussions, comments?
I guess just a clarification, 0.5 under other, notification of drivers of vacant positions in the divisions means.
So anytime there is a driver vacancy, there's an EA position, there would be a secretarial position, they've asked that they get notified. So moving forward, Sandra HR has simply sent an email out to them saying, please note this position is open. You can see it in its entirety on the website, just so that they've got a heads up.
Got a heads up that there's a job. Yeah. Did you have anything to add, Jody, to that? No, okay.
No.
Adrian?
I just wanted to ask about the meal allowance, but do drivers get a meal allowance?
Yeah, so we're not sure why, but they had been in the past required to submit receipts, and it became a little bit of a burden. So for example, if a driver was doing a field trip, and let's say it was, they were stopping at 5 o'clock in the afternoon for 2 hours. They might run into a grocery store, buy some food that they would make their own snack or meal with, and get a receipt for that. And then that would be classified as their supper. But let's say they drove and at 10 o'clock, they wanted to stop for a snack because they were driving home then, that snack didn't qualify for that part of that allowance. And so what they're asking for is just the flat rate. So if the board has set a rate of out of division of $25 for their supper, they can spend up to and including $25. They go over, that's on them. If they go under, they can still claim that 25, but it's way easier for our payroll, for everything, and we're splitting hairs with pennies for the difference.
It's just for field trips though.
Yeah.
There's no daily
Not
meal
daily.
allowance.
No, unless they're on a day trip for the division. No, daily they don't claim a meal because, no, at all, but yeah, field trips.
Any other questions, comments? Well, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 9.2.4 third-party user transportation rates and fees.
To approve the proposed rate for third-party bus contracting effective immediately as follows. 1, school bus rentals, $1.85 per kilometer plus $29 per hour driver rate plus meals and accommodation plus $29 per hour unit clean. 2, coach rentals, $1.95 per kilometer plus $29 per hour driver rate plus meals and accommodation plus $29 per hour unit clean.
Who would like to make that motion? Thank you, Lynn. Comments, questions? Laura?
Are these rates what, when we've had forest fires and that, are these the considered rates that are paid by forestry?
These would be the rates that we would charge. So for example, if we had the Boy Scouts wanting to rent a bus
No, I
or
was just
forestry or any.
Okay, just because we've made good
We have.
in forest fires, not lately, because the whole structure is different for that. Thank you.
Okay. Lynn's going before you, Karen. Lynn?
That's fine. for me.
Do these rates, that they would be changed to, do they cover the cost of the busing?
Jody, maybe you can answer that. I think that.
Or do they come close, or?
Yes, so Harry and I had a discussion before I left. This is basically it'll cover our costs with a little bit of cushion in case the costs still keep going up. We're leaving the school rates as is, so we're not impacting our schools, but this is for external, and we feel this is the appropriate action given the percentage increase we're seeing in fuel and even parts increases in parts. This will cover our costs.
If we can even get the parts, right?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole other issue, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Karen?
Thank you. My question was similar, that was a part of my question, and this can be revisited at any point, depending on what happens with these prices. Okay, and then the second question was a $29 an hour unit clean. A unit clean is typically an hour? Does it depend on some?
Depends on who rented the bus and how well behaved they were, I guess.
Okay, okay,
How many kids got sick or not?
okay, thank you. That's. Good answer.
I have one question. So if you wanted to rent a coach bus to, let's say you want to go shopping for 2 days to Cross Iron Mills, and you didn't want to drive, you want to take 5 friends, you can rent the coach bus. You pay $195 or $1.95 a kilometer. You pay the bus driver $29 an hour. You pay for their meals, their accommodations, and you pay them $29 an hour to clean. You split that between 5 of you. You pay the school division. You take care of paying the drivers. Like you write one check,
Yes.
and then you guys take care of
Yes.
paying the drivers and everything. And do you do that? Like,
Yes.
Okay.
So can we find 5 friends? No.
Yeah.
Well, I got more than 5. I want to go Cross Iron Mill shopping. I'm actually thinking about going on a curling bonspiel, and I wondered if we could rent the school bus to do that. So, okay.
And bus drivers are paid, if it's overnight, they're paid 24 hours. They're paid for every hour that they're being used.
No, not necessarily.
Mm.
Jody, the hourly rate for,
Yeah, so it depends on the situation. Like in some cases, say it's a day trip and the driver is able to deliver the passengers and they don't hang around, they are able to be dismissed and come back at a later date, then they wouldn't get paid the full
Right.
rate. But if we're asking them to be in a situation they're on standby, then yes,
And
So it
yes, you
just
keep
depends.
paying throughout. Okay.
that's right. It just depends on every situation, slightly different. The distance they have to travel as well. Like if it's a local, not so much, but if for Joy's Cross Iron trip, then more likely so.
Yeah,
Charge it
yes,
out.
okay.
so
Yeah.
if they have an accommodation, for example, so by the time you get down to Calgary,
Right.
you've got a hotel room for them, they can go into their hotel room, then you stop paying that hourly rate until you need them again the next day.
Because the accommodations are covered. Yeah. Okay, I understand. Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right. Any more questions, comments, discussions? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. 9.2.5, contribution to the High Prairie Traditional Powwow.
That High Prairie School Division contribute the sum of $2,000, which is the bear sponsorship to support the 6th annual High Prairie Traditional Powwow, which is taking place on May 7th, 2022.
Who would like to make that motion? Thank you, Adrian.
You can refer to attachments and the Administrative Procedure 515, donations on behalf of the school division. High Prairie School Division contributed $2,000 for the last High Prairie Powwow in 2019 and $1,000 in each of the 3 previous years to that.
What made the change? Like, why did it get increased? What was that happened there?
I want to say it was based on the ask,
Yeah,
but I don't,
I'm not opposed to the money.
no, I understand.
I think because
It would be in our,
It might be in the, not the reason for the increase.
no,
I know that we honor our grads, our Indigenous grads there. We were able to put up like some booths there, and we had all our hand games going there. So maybe because we had so many activities taking place there.
Okay.
But that's a guess.
Plus, it's been a few years since we donated to it without having it, so with nothing being taking place in COVID times, so there may be a reason to go back to 2000. I think it was.
Karen?
not that this necessarily made a difference in our decision. I don't remember the specifics, but it is a different sponsorship category. So I don't know if that played into the decision. I'm not sure.
I think there may have been some question about it being in High Prairie and the powwow, an explanation at the time is what I remember. And that, so be what this board would like to do. And went to the one, I don't normally go to powwows on that, but I don't go to anything else either, so it's not. But I think it was a very good experience, and it was good to see the kids get the blankets. They thought they're going to be tremendously wonderful, but you kind of go, it is public money, guys, like get with the program and understand that. But they were happy enough to have the experience in that. And there are a lot of former students, like, I mean, I saw Kiefer Belrose there in his regalia to dance and see that. It seems to be the same thing over and over, but I guess that's like a rodeo too. So they're all the same thing over and over, right? It's your level of entertainment, but it was quite enjoyable. So, and there are booths and stuff like that. And I know the library had a booth. The Native liaison person came out from Grand Prairie for Peace Library System and did coloring and all kinds of things with the kids. So there was some kind of entertainment that way. So. And it's very successful, and we haven't had COVID-free events for a while. Like, so I think it'll probably be a really good turnout.
Any other questions, comments? I have a question. It says that the hand games tournament is the same amount. Would we then be like the main sponsor for the hand games tournament? Or do you get to pick? Like, so under the sponsorship opportunity, it says hand games tournament, $2,000, same as the bear is $2,000. Do you get to pick if you want to?
Oh, if you wanted to, instead of giving it to the bear, you wanted to give it to the hand game?
Yeah, I just wondered
Yeah, like they've asked us to sponsor the bear, but if you wanted to sponsor the.
So they would like us to be the bear
That
sponsor.
was in their letter, it was bear, right? The bear sponsorship.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I believe it was.
Okay, no worries. Okay. So there's a motion on the table. Any more questions, comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. 9.2.6 Edwin Parr Teacher Award.
That the board accept administration's recommendation to nominate Kara Hobrick from CJ Schurter School as High Prairie School Division's candidate for the ASBA 2022 Edwin Parr Teacher Award.
Who would like to make that motion? Lori? Any questions, comments, discussion? Tammy?
I just have a quick question. In terms of our nomination, that goes forward to zone. Do we extend recognition to the 3 people that were nominated?
At the Long Service Award,
Okay.
all of them get not like they've all been put up as candidates for that. So the board
We recognize it
recognizes
there.
all
Okay.
teachers that have been put forward.
Perfect. Can you tell us the names of the 3 that were put forward?
Yes, I think.
Kara Hauser, Ryan, somebody, and there should be Kara Hobrick. I'm just doing it from memory.
I'll talk about all 3 of them as we go through, because I think that was in the notes. So Kara Hobrick is the Edwin Parr nominee that the administration put forward. She teaches grade 2 at CJ Schurter. She is selected candidate because she has demonstrated incredible leadership in her first year at CJ. She's a leader in her PLC and the division collaboration meetings. She's also started several initiatives at CJ Schurter, such as the recycling program. She's a strong teacher with excellent classroom management and positive classroom relationships. She's eager for feedback and she's always looking to improve her teaching skills. She's quick to put any feedback into practice and demonstrates that she is a quick learner who is on her way to a very successful career in education. The other nominees that will be recognized are Ryan Haynes and Megan Obey. Ryan Haynes is an English art drama teacher at Roland Michener. His strength as a teacher is in building relationships with students. Students connect with him and he's clearly invested in their success. Ryan is also a team player who's always helping out at the school. He volunteers often and is always offering to help anyone who needs it. Ryan is an engaging teacher who makes learning fun for his students. In the last term, his teaching assignment and schedule were completely changed due to a staffing change, and he quickly adjusted and adapted to this change. He's a positive and active staff member at the school. Megan Aubin is a French immersion teacher who is teaching kindergarten at École Routier. In her first year, she has been an excellent addition to the school. She's a positive person at the school who's always offering to help out and volunteer. Her classroom management is excellent. She's working hard to create rigorous and engaging lessons. She's doing an excellent job of teaching French to her students and helping them to become confident in speaking and learning the language. She's a keen learner who's always looking for feedback on how to improve her practice.
Thanks.
Any more questions, comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. 9.2.7, tobacco and vaping letter.
That High Prairie School Division submit a letter to the Minister of Health, copy to the Minister of Education, and our provincial associations, thank you, regarding vaping and asking that vaping be looked at. That packaging, flavoring, and marketing be looked at so that it is not directed at our youth.
Who would like to make that motion? Corey, thank you. Questions, comments, discussion? Karen?
Yeah, just what are some of the precedents that would relate to this that we can?
Tobacco,
Right, for example.
snuff. So the fact that they took menthol flavor out
Yeah.
and the menthol out of cigarettes,
Yeah.
and the packaging was mentioned, like that it's a plain packaging. Also, the location, if they could even change the location, the others are buried right behind curtains.
You're not even allowed to have them visual.
That was
Yes.
part, yes, that was
That would
part of
make
the
a big
revamp.
difference.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, cigarettes now need to be where they used to be
Yeah,
front
yeah,
and
that's true.
center, now need to be behind
Yeah.
the counter, locked at all times unless they're accessing. So,
Yeah, those are good.
so kind
Good
of
points.
along the same lines as what we'd be
Yeah.
advocating for.
There's
It
no,
might be something we would see success too, if it was done, like it's measurable, right?
are there commercials for that kind of stuff?
I don't have TV.
I don't believe there is.
Well,
I
I've never seen
believe
any.
that commercials about drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and all, everything is federally mandated
Right.
through the CRTC. I think that's federally mandated. So I would imagine that vaping falls under tobacco in that realm, and
I've never
that's
seen
all
any.
federally mandated.
Actually, the only commercials on TV are for liquor and stuff and beer. There's no cigarette commercials when you think about it.
It's true, yeah.
Being as I only watch the commercials, shut the TV.
Any other?
Is there any kind of education that can be brought forward on this kind of stuff? On vaping specifically, like articles that can be sharing studies that share, I don't know.
Tammy?
There definitely is, and there, just like there was targeted education programs that were brought into schools around smoking that caused a generational shift in smokers being a minority rather than a majority. If we could lobby and get support, we could certainly attempt to facilitate some of that within the education system, because we see that that's where significant changes happened around cigarettes, around seatbelts, around bike helmets, all of those different things. So if we can advocate strongly and gain that support, maybe we can solve that. ASBA has a vaping position on the books. It's not, this was right when vaping initiated, before it became a bling and a real status thing. So it's a fairly, it's not quite as hard hitting as a position statement as I think what we need it to be now, only because they took vaping from being something that was pretty unknown and turned it into this gimmick of rhinestones and flavors and all of that stuff that makes it really attractive to children.
Yeah.
So
Is there a way that I remember, it was many moons ago when I was in school, now that we're able to have assemblies again, like I remember at one point I had a recovered drug addict come in and talk about his recovery and what drugs did to his life. Like, is that even a possibility if kids would even listen to have a guest speaker in assemblies or something like that in the future?
that's school guided, but I mean,
Usually our wellness coaches are the first line that kids will go to. And what we find is that there's a greater impact when they have a one-to-one relationship with the student than
Versus an
speaking
assembly.
to the masses.
Okay.
But they are doing that now. We've got packages, like the federal government has information out around the risks of vaping and that can lead to a nicotine addiction. AHS has some resources and our wellness coaches access them.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah, good.
Any more questions, comments, discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 10.
I have a question in between. Should this item be added to the advocacy committee's list, perhaps? Yeah. So do we need a motion for that, or does it just get picked up by the advocacy committee?
just get picked up. Yeah, that wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be a motion, would it?
We'll
Do you
just
want it
add
to be a motion?
No, I would just want to make sure the advocacy committee picks this up and keeps it going.
Okay.
I think I'm on that committee.
10.1, finance.
Commissioner Moore.
To approve the accounts receivable, accounts payables, checks, EFT register, visa, and budget reports as presented. Would like to make that motion. Karen? Any questions? Oh, Jody.
I just like to bring the board's attention that, no surprise, I'm sure, but it's worth mentioning, the fuel and utilities costs are out of whack compared to what we budgeted. Now, with the government's recent announcement, hopefully that'll mitigate some of the fuel spikes we're seeing. But for instance, at the end of February, we should be halfway through the year. Both fuel and utilities are at 75% of the yearly budget halfway through the year. So, like I said, hopefully the government's fuel announcement will help it, but the utilities, and there's no way to mitigate our utility costs. Like with fuel, we can decide to do a few things, but the only thing that's going to mitigate our utility costs is the fact that we're coming into the warmer part of the year. So, but it's worth noting that we will be over budget in those two areas for sure, which I don't think will be a surprise to anyone.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, discussion?
I just want to address the
Oh,
fact that
okay,
my name
perfect.
is on a receivables list, and I think that I want to be transparent about it. It's a $90 charge that I forgot to pay in time. It's been paid, and it's for the group insurance.
Same here.
Just so
Adrian, you're also on.
Yeah.
Okay, like, I just wanted to be a debt collector, and otherwise I've been too quiet too long.
No, I think it's important for us
Yeah.
to be able to explain why we're on. If you opted into
Only
the
if
group
you opted
insurance.
into the extra insurance.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, discussion? We've all had a chance to look at it, so we've already looked at it and gone through it. So if we don't have any, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Standing committee reports, 11.1. Karen.
Thank you. So I have a quick report, followed by a few recommendations for action. The Employee Recognition Committee met last night. That includes myself, Lori, Corey, and we met with Kyle and Sue, just to review the plans for the upcoming 2022 Long Service Awards being held May 27th, I believe. That's the right date, right? Okay. So we had a quick review of what we had, where we were at so far. We discussed the venue, different options for the venue, Edwin Parr trophies. We had to select a new style. And so that's still in the process because the Google Docs that was being shared with us wasn't quite working. So we will decide for sure on an Edwin Parr trophy at a later date. Retiree gifts needed to change. Some of them on the list from the last time needed to change due to the fact that they were discontinued. So that was discussed. A recommendation will come of that. And we decided yesterday to have the congratulatory cards, so the Long Service Awards cards that every recipient receives. We decided to, the question was whether or not to sign them in person or electronically, and we just preferred to sign them in person. And so we decided that. If anybody has any objections, please say so. Did you want to talk about the 15-year pins? Or it was just a discussion, right? Like that's just, okay. Okay, so the recommendations, we're going to go back to the venue discussion. So a recommendation will go, we are recommending, or maybe I'm making a motion. Is that how this works? Well, it's a recommendation for a motion?
I think talk about it
Okay,
and then we'll make the motion as per your recommendation.
okay, so the recommendation reads as such, or maybe do we want to go into the options first, Kyle? That we had, and then the recommendation
Maybe we read the recommendation.
first? Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is to host the 2022 Long Service Award Banquet in the central part of the division, so in the High Prairie area, in person on May 27th, 2022, as set at the October 20th, 2021 organizational meeting. So in terms of venue, that's under venue. In terms of venue, we, the last time we had talked about this was pre-COVID, had chosen the Anilda Hall.
Yeah.
Do we have an answer from them yet?
We do, they're available, and we have that tentatively booked as we speak, with the ability to get in beforehand, set up, and then the day after to take down.
And that's got capacity for what we need.
Yes, and then some, more so than the existing facilities we've
used in the past, right? Perfect. I don't know the process now.
Just keep going forward with your recommendations.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought it was separate motions that we had to make. Okay. And then in terms of retiree gifts and Is it just retiree gifts? Hold on, let me just make sure. And long service award gift values. The recommendation is to maintain the long service award gift values for years served that were put in place at the March 18th, 2018 regular board meeting, and that retirees continue to receive a personalized recognition gift as selected by the Board of Trustees as per admin procedure 404, long service awards. So those are the two recommendations coming forth from the community.
Okay, so if you want to make a motion, then High Prairie School Division accept the recommendation of the Employee Recognition Committee to have the long service banquet and recognition, I'd say blah, blah, blah. Accept the recommendation of the Employee Recognition in Committee for the long service awards and the long service awards.
It's sort of reaffirming, maybe that one, reaffirming what exists.
And yeah, it's just your recommendation, accept the recommendation of the Employee Recognition Committee for Long Service Award. And the gifts, what's the word? Rewarding award.
Award.
Recognition or awards,
I guess, yeah.
yeah, awards. The long service banquet and award. Yeah. And awards. Banquet and awards. Okay, so High Prairie School Division accept the recommendation of the Employee Recognition Committee of the Employee Recognition for the long service banquet, venue, and awards.
There we go. Do you need a separate motion for that, or? So that would be the
That's-
motion to
that's-
accept the recommendation. Okay.
Who would like to make the motion?
I can make it.
Thank you, Lori.
That's what I was getting.
Any more,
That process confuses me every
any
time.
more discussion, comments, questions? Well, call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Now we'll look for a motion to go into camera. Lynn will make the motion to go into camera.
And so, and I think we're asking everyone to.
Yeah, everyone except for Laura on the board.
So I will end the live stream now.
Yes.
Yes.